The Instacart grocery receipt was still stuck to our fridge with a little magnet shaped like a lemon, and right under it I found a torn pregnancy pamphlet in the trash with my name circled in pen, and I stayed quiet as something inside me went cold. My name is Lorelei, I am 33, and I work as a physical therapist at a rehab hospital. My husband, Knox, is 32 and works in project management. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment that always smells faintly like coffee grounds and lemon cleaner because I clean when I am stressed, and lately I am stressed a lot. Knox lost his father when he was a teenager. He was raised by his mom, Sela, and the way he talks about her sometimes feels like a prayer. She is strong, she is sharp. She is also the kind of person who can make you feel like you are standing in the wrong place, even when you are in your own home. When Sela's knees got worse and her doctor told her she needed help with stairs and daily chores, Knox didn't hesitate. We moved her in. It felt like the right thing to do. I even told myself it would be good for us. Good for family, good karma, all the pretty ideas people repeat when they want something hard to sound simple. The first few months were almost sweet. Sela would sit at our tiny kitchen table in the mornings, sunlight catching the silver strands in her hair, and she would tell Knox stories about his dad that made him laugh in a way I rarely saw. She would call me honey and ask how my patients were doing. She would fold our towels into perfect little rectangles and line them up like a hotel. Then the baby comments started. At first they were like mosquito bites. Annoying, easy to ignore. You know, Sela would say, watching some daytime show where a woman cradled a newborn, a home feels different when there's a little one in it. Or she would point at a toddler in the grocery store and smile too hard. That's what I miss, having a little hand to hold. Knox would squeeze my knee under the table, and I would keep my face calm and keep chewing because I love my husband, and I knew he was still grieving pieces of his life that never got to happen. The truth was complicated. I did not hate children. I work with people who are learning to walk again, and I have watched grown men cry when they manage 3 steps, and I know life is fragile and miraculous. I have held newborn nieces and felt that warm, soft weight. Sometimes I wondered what our child would look like, if they would have Knox's dark eyes, if they would get my crooked smile, but I also knew what my life looked like right now. Long hours. Constant emotional labor at work, student loans I was still paying, a career I fought for, and a marriage that had just started to feel stable after years of hustle. Mostly I knew my body. I knew my mind, and deep down I knew I was not ready. Maybe I would be someday. Maybe I would not. That answer belonged to me and Knox, not the woman who now lived 10 feet from our bed. For almost a year I tried to keep the peace. I smiled. I changed the subject. I did what women are taught to do when someone crosses a line. I made myself smaller so the room could feel bigger for everyone else. But Sela didn't want peace. She wanted control dressed up as concern. One night after Knox and I came home late from work, Sela was waiting in the living room with the television off, like she had been sitting in the dark on purpose. Knox looked tired. I looked tired. Our shoulders were still tense from the day. Sela patted the couch. Sit. Knox sat. I stayed standing. Something about her tone made my stomach tighten. She looked right at me, not Knox, and said, I heard you telling your friend on the phone that you're busy with work. Lorelei, work will never hug you back. I blinked. I hadn't been talking to a friend. I'd been talking to my sister, and I hadn't said that. Not like that. Knox frowned. Mom, what are you talking about? Sela waved her hand. I'm talking about priorities. You both have them backwards. A woman's prime doesn't last forever. I felt my cheeks heat. The word prime hit me like I was produce on a shelf. I forced a small laugh. Sela, I'm not a carton of milk. She didn't laugh. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, and said, then stop acting like you have endless time. Knox started to say something, but Sela cut him off without even looking at him. That was the first twist I noticed. It wasn't just about a grandchild. It was about power. Sela didn't speak to Knox like he was her son. She spoke to him like he was still a boy. Knox didn't defend me that night. Not really. He said, Mom, can we not do this right now? In the same soft voice he used when he didn't want conflict. Then he changed the subject. He asked her about her knee appointment. I told myself it was fine. I told myself he was tired. I told myself it wasn't worth a fight. But later, in our bedroom, when he turned off the lamp and rolled toward me, I whispered, do you agree with her? In the dark, he took a long breath. No, I don't like seeing her upset. That sentence lodged in my chest like a splinter, because I suddenly understood the unspoken rule in our apartment. Sela's feelings were the weather. Everyone else just carried umbrellas. The next twist came a week later. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a screenshot of a text thread. Sela's name was at the top. Under it was a message she had sent to someone named Waverly. She's selfish. I didn't raise my son to marry a woman who refuses to do what women are meant to do. I'm running out of time. My hands went numb. It felt like my pulse moved into my fingertips. I stared at the screen, reading it again and again like the words might change. Then I looked at the sender's message under the screenshot. I don't know you, but this didn't sit right with me. I'm a friend of Knox's from church. I thought you should see it. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot and stared straight ahead, unable to breathe for a second because I wasn't just being pressured in my home. I was being talked about outside of it. My private life was being turned into gossip, like a story Sela could tell to make herself look like the victim. Didn't respond right away. I didn't call Knox screaming. I didn't storm home. I did something else. I took a screenshot, then another. Then I forwarded it to my own email with the date saved in the subject line because I have learned in life that if someone is comfortable disrespecting you, they are usually comfortable lying about it later. That night, I waited until Knox had eaten dinner and Sela had gone to bed. I sat across from him at the kitchen table, the lemon magnet still holding up our grocery receipt like nothing had changed, and I slid my phone to him. He read it. I watched his face. At first confusion, then anger, then something like panic. She shouldn't have said that. He murmured. My voice came out quiet. She did say it. He rubbed his forehead. She's old school. She doesn't mean it like that. I felt something in me snap into clarity. Knox, she called me selfish and said I refuse to do what women are meant to do. He swallowed hard. I'll talk to her. I nodded like that was enough, like I trusted it. But I didn't, because I had seen how he bent around her moods. I had lived it for months, and I understood that if I waited for Knox to create boundaries, I might be waiting forever. So I got quiet, I got careful, and I started noticing things I had been too polite to notice before. Sela had a habit of entering our bedroom without knocking, always with a reason. A basket of laundry, a question about where the extra batteries were, a casual comment about how our bedroom was so warm at night, said with a look that made my skin crawl. One afternoon, I came home early and heard Sela on the phone in the living room. She didn't know I was there. She said, he's a good man, just needs the right push. When she's pregnant, she'll settle down. They always do. I stopped in the hallway. My keys were still in my hand. The air felt thin. She laughed softly into the phone. Oh, I'm not worried. I know what I'm doing. I stood there, silent, my heart pounding so loud I thought she might hear it. And in that moment, the question that started with a pamphlet in the trash became sharper. What exactly was Selah doing? I didn't confront her. I didn't even let her know I heard. I walked into the kitchen like everything was normal, set my keys down gently and said, "Hi Selah, how was your day?" She turned, startled for half a second, then smiled. "Fine, honey. You're home early." I smiled back. "Yeah, busy morning at the clinic." My voice sounded steady, but inside I was shaking, because if she was bold enough to say that out loud to someone, what was she willing to do in private? That night, I pulled Knox into our bedroom and locked the door. He looked surprised. "What's going on?" I kept my voice calm, because if I sounded emotional, he would focus on my tone instead of the truth. "Your mom is telling people she's going to push me into pregnancy." I heard her. His face went pale. "No, she wouldn't." I stared at him. "Knox, she already told people I'm selfish. She already told people I'm refusing to do what women are meant to do. Why is it hard to believe she would cross another line?" He sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly looking smaller. "What do you want me to do?" I took a breath. "I want boundaries. Real ones. A lock on the door. And I want her to stop talking about my body." Knox nodded quickly. Okay, I'll handle it." But he still didn't look me in the eye when he said it. And that scared me more than Selah's words did, because it meant he was still hoping it would all blow over. And I was starting to realize it wouldn't. The next day, Selah acted like nothing happened. She made pancakes. She hummed. She asked me if I liked my coffee black or with cream, even though she already knew the answer. Then as I rinsed a plate, she leaned close enough that I could smell her floral lotion and said softly, "You know, Lorelai, women who wait too long end up lonely. Men don't like regret." I kept rinsing the plate. The water ran over my fingers. I didn't look at her. She continued almost sweetly, "I'm just trying to save you from making a mistake." My throat tightened. I wanted to tell her to stop. I wanted to tell her my marriage was not hers to manage. I wanted to tell her that I was not a vessel. But I remembered what I had promised myself. Silent revenge. Smart counter. Proof. Action. So I said the one word that made her eyes brighten. "Okay." Selah smiled like she had won something. And that was my second twist. She thought my silence meant surrender. It didn't. It meant I was building my plan. A few days later, we had friends over for dinner. One of those couples who bring their kids and make your apartment feel smaller and louder. The toddler dropped crackers everywhere. The baby cried, then laughed, then cried again. Everyone cooed and joked and passed the baby around like a warm loaf of bread. Selah was glowing. Knox looked bittersweet. I felt like I was sitting in the middle of a performance where my body was the stage. After they left, the apartment finally quiet again. Selah stood by the doorway watching me pick up crumbs. Her voice was sharp and loud enough that Knox couldn't pretend not to hear. "You can't even give me one grandchild," she said. "Isn't that what women are meant to do? Your clock is already expiring." The word expiring hit me like a slap. My hands froze over the crumbs. Knox inhaled like he was about to speak, but his throat worked and nothing came out. Selah looked at me, waiting for me to fold, waiting for my apology, waiting for my shame, and I felt it. The familiar urge to smooth things over, to be the good wife, the grateful daughter-in-law, the quiet woman who takes it. But then I saw that torn pamphlet in my mind again, my name circled in ink, like a target. I stood up slowly and brushed my hands together, looked at Selah and said, very calmly, "You don't get to talk to me like that." Selah's smile vanished. "Excuse me?" I turned to Knox. "Are you going to say something?" He stared between us, trapped, and Selah, seeing his hesitation, stepped forward like she was about to deliver the final blow. That was when I made my choice. I didn't raise my voice, didn't argue. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and set it on the counter with the screen facing up. Selah's eyes flicked to it, suspicious. Knox frowned. "What is that?" I took a slow breath because my heart was racing, but my voice needed to stay steady. "It's proof," I said. Quick real life pause. "When I'm editing these late at night, I get tired, and your comments are what keep me going. Like, subscribe, and tell me your city, state, or country." "All right, now let me take you back." Selah's face tightened. "Proof of what?" I didn't answer her yet. I just tapped my screen, opened my email, and let Knox see the subject lines I had saved. Knox's eyes widened as he scrolled. Selah's hand flew to her mouth, not in guilt, but in shock that I had receipts. And in that moment, I realized something that made my stomach drop. Selah wasn't scared of losing Knox. She was scared of losing Conti. Knox's thumb stopped mid-scroll like the screen had turned into something hot. His jaw clenched. He looked up at me once, then back down, then up again, and I could tell his brain was trying to protect his childhood memories by turning all of this into a misunderstanding. Selah took one step closer to the counter. Eyes narrowed, voice suddenly too polite. "Why are you digging through private messages, Lorelai?" I kept my face neutral. My palms were damp, but I pressed them lightly against the edge of the countertop so she would not see my hands shake. "I am not digging. Someone sent me something I needed to see." Knox swallowed. "Mom, who is Waverly?" Selah's gaze flicked to him, sharp. "A friend." Knox looked down again. "You told her my wife is selfish. You told her you are running out of time. You told her I need the right push." His voice cracked on push. "What does that even mean?" Selah's shoulders lifted in a tiny shrug like she was bored. "It means exactly what you think it means, Knox. You deserve a family. A real one." The word real cut through the air and landed right in my chest. I felt humiliation wash over me, not because I believed her, but because she was comfortable saying it in my home, while standing in front of the man I love. Knox stared at her. "Lorelai is my family." Selah's mouth tightened. "Marriage is a start. Children are the finish." I watched Knox's face change, and it was strange to witness. I had seen him confident in meetings, decisive with budgets, calm under pressure, but in front of his mother, he looked like he was back in high school, back in that house where his grief probably made him cling to the only parent he had left. He rubbed his forehead. "Mom, you need to apologize." Selah laughed softly, like he had told a joke. "For what?" "For caring." I didn't interrupt. Not yet. This was the part where Selah always tried to pull the conversation into a fog of emotion, where facts turned into feelings and the loudest person became the victim. I wanted her to talk. I wanted her to feel safe enough to reveal the truth. I asked one small question, gently. "Selah, why was my name circled on a pregnancy pamphlet in the trash?" Knox's head snapped toward me. "What?" Selah froze for half a beat, just half a beat, but I caught it. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, and she forced a smile that looked pasted on. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she said. I nodded like I accepted that. "Okay." The word seemed to relax her, because she believed what she wanted to believe, that I was finally folding, that I was embarrassed, that I was too soft to fight. Knox's voice rose. "Lorelai, what pamphlet?" I turned to him, still calm. It was torn. It looked like it came from a clinic. It had my name written on it. It was in the kitchen trash under coffee grounds. Knox stared at Selah. "Mom," Selah's chin lifted. "You are both being dramatic." Knox's voice went quieter, which somehow made it more dangerous. "Answer the question." Selah's eyes darted to the hallway, as if she was thinking about her bedroom door, about retreat. Then she sighed like a martyr. "Fine." I picked up a pamphlet. I wanted to leave it somewhere she would see it. Sometimes people need a nudge. I felt my stomach drop because I had expected denial, maybe tears, maybe rage. I had not expected the casual confidence of someone who believed she was entitled to manipulate my body. Knox looked like he had been slapped. "You were trying to pressure her." Selah waved her hand. "Pressure is a strong word. Motivation." I kept my tone even. "That pamphlet was torn." Selah blinked. So, I tilted my head slightly. How did it tear? Selah's mouth opened, then closed. That split-second silence was everything. Then she said too quickly, it tore when I pulled it out of my purse. Nox frowned. Why was it in your purse? Selah's eyes flashed with irritation. Because I took it from the clinic. My heart thudded once hard. There it was. A detail she had not needed to give. Nox stared. What clinic? Selah realized too late that she had stepped onto the proof line. She tried to back up. A clinic. A women's clinic. Don't play stupid with me, Nox. I let the silence stretch because silence makes people talk. Selah hates silence. She fills it with control. Nox asked again, slower. What clinic? Selah's shoulder stiffened. It doesn't matter, but it did matter. Because I had not been to a clinic. Not for that. And Nox knew it too. I reached for my phone again, not with drama, just like I was checking the weather. I didn't want to say this earlier, I said, because I didn't want you to feel cornered. But I called the number on the pamphlet today. Nox's eyes widened. Selah's lips parted. I continued, voice steady. The receptionist said an appointment request came in under my name. She asked if I wanted to confirm it. Nox stood up so fast the chair legs scraped. What? Selah's face went pale for the first time. That is ridiculous. I nodded once. It sounded ridiculous. That's why I asked for the details. Nox's voice shook with anger now. Mom, did you call a clinic and pretend to be my wife? Selah's eyes hardened because the mask was slipping and she needed a new one. I did what I had to do. You think I wanted to? I wanted to help. I am watching you waste your life. I am watching her steal the future your father would have wanted for you. My throat tightened at the mention of his father. That was her weapon. She kept his grief in her pocket like a blade, pulling it out whenever she needed Nox to bleed loyalty. Nox's voice cracked. Don't talk about dad like that. Selah stepped forward. Your father loved babies. He wanted grandchildren. He would be heartbroken. I watched Nox's eyes fill. My chest ached for him. And still, underneath that ache, anger flared because Selah was willing to use the dead to control the living. I took a breath and forced myself to stay composed. Selah, I said softly, you don't get to summon someone who isn't here to bully the people who are. Selah glared at me. You're turning him against me. I didn't argue. Instead, I asked another small question. One that sounded innocent. If you were only trying to help, why did you tell your friend that once I was pregnant, I would settle down? Selah flinched. Nox looked at her like he didn't recognize her. Nox's hands balled into fists. Mom, that's disgusting. Selah's eyes filled with tears in an instant, like someone flipped a switch. So now I'm disgusting. After everything I did. After everything I sacrificed. Nox's shoulders sagged, reflexive guilt rising. I saw it happen like I had watched it happen 100 times before. Selah's tears were an emergency alarm that made Nox run back into the role of caretaker. This is where I normally would have tried to soothe. I would have said something gentle. I would have offered an escape route. Instead, I stayed quiet. I let Nox sit with the truth. Selah wiped her eyes dramatically and said, I can't live in a home where I'm hated. Maybe I should move out. Maybe I should disappear. Maybe that's what you both want. Nox's mouth opened, then closed. He looked torn. I waited until Selah's words settled, until the manipulation had room to breathe. Then I said calmly, if you want to move out, we can help you make a plan. Selah went still. What? Nox turned to me, shocked. Lorelai. I looked at him, gentle but firm. I am not throwing her out. I am not screaming. I'm not humiliating her, but we cannot live like this. And she just said she wants to move out. Selah stared at me like I had slapped her with a velvet glove. She expected tears. She expected pleading. She expected the old script. Nox whispered, Mom, did you mean that? Selah's voice sharpened. No, I meant I am hurt. I nodded. I believe you're hurt, but hurt doesn't give you permission to cross boundaries. Selah's face tightened. Boundaries. That's a trendy word. Families don't need boundaries. I kept my voice low. Families need respect. Selah opened her mouth, and I could see the next weapon she was about to use. Something about gratitude. Something about sacrifice. Something designed to make Nox feel like a bad son. I cut in gently with another question. Selah, did you also contact my workplace? The words hung in the air. Nox blinked. What? Selah's eyes flicked away for just a second. That was all the answer I needed. I felt a cold wave of fear run through me. My job is not just money. It is my identity. It is my stability. It is the one place where I am not someone's wife or someone's daughter-in-law. Selah lifted her chin. I was curious. I wanted to know what kind of environment you're in. I nodded slowly like I was taking notes. Did you call my supervisor? Selah scoffed. Don't flatter yourself. Nox's voice went hard. Mom, stop. I stepped closer to the counter and picked up my phone again. My coworker told me someone left a voicemail asking if I plan to take maternity leave soon. She thought it was weird because no one at work knows I'm trying for a baby. Nox looked like he might be sick. Mom, tell me you didn't do that. Selah's eyes flashed. I did not. People can say anything. I didn't accuse. I didn't argue. I just said, okay. Then I unlocked my phone and opened my voicemail because I had already requested the recording from the front desk. I had already saved it. I had already done the quiet work. I played it. Selah's voice came through the speaker, bright and fake sweet, asking questions about my schedule and mentioning pregnancy like it was casual. Nox's face drained of color. He stared at his mother like she was a stranger who had walked into our apartment wearing Selah's skin. Selah's mouth trembled. I was only trying to protect my son. Nox's voice shook, but it was controlled. You tried to sabotage my wife's job. Selah stepped back, suddenly small. That's not what I did. Nox's eyes filled again, but this time the tears looked different. Not grief, not guilt. Anger mixed with heartbreak. He turned to me, and his voice was barely above a whisper. How long has this been happening? I felt shame because I had hidden pieces to avoid conflict. I felt fear because I didn't know how far Selah would go. And I felt something else too, a grim clarity. Long enough, I said. Nox nodded once, like he was making a decision inside himself. He looked at Selah. You're going to stay with Aunt Greer for a while. Selah's eyes widened. You can't send me away. Nox's voice stayed calm. I can, and I am. Selah's tears stopped instantly, replaced by fury. She's controlling you. She's stealing you. Nox didn't flinch. He pointed to the phone still on the counter. No, you did this. You crossed lines. You tried to force a pregnancy. You call out her job. You lied in her name. Selah's breathing turned fast and shallow. She looked at me with pure hate, like I had ruined her life instead of simply refusing to let her ruin mine. I stayed quiet because silence was my revenge. Not loud drama, not cruelty, just the truth placed in the right hands. Selah turned and stormed down the hallway, the sound of her bedroom door slamming like a gunshot in our small apartment. Nox stood there for a moment, frozen. Then he sank into the chair and covered his face with his hands. I walked around the table and put my hand on his shoulder. I didn't say I told you. I didn't say finally. I just breathed with him until he could breathe again. His voice was muffled. I feel like a monster. I swallowed. You're not a monster. You're a husband. He lifted his head, eyes red. I should have protected you sooner. My chest ached. Yes, I said softly. But you're here now. We didn't sleep much that night. Selah moved around in her room, drawers opening and closing, her footsteps heavy. Nox lay on his back, staring at the ceiling. I lay on my side, staring at the locked bedroom door, listening to every sound. my heart racing each time the apartment creaked. Near dawn, my phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a photo of a printed document on a kitchen counter I didn't recognize. At the top, in bold letters, were the words, eviction notice. Under it, my name and Knox's name. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up, because I realized Selah wasn't just scared of losing control anymore. She was ready to burn the whole house down to keep it. I stared at the picture on my phone until the letters blurred, like my eyes could erase it if I refused to focus. The paper looked official. It had our names typed neatly. It had a date. It had a signature line. My throat tightened so hard I could barely swallow. Knox sat up beside me, rubbing his face like he could wake himself out of a nightmare. What is it? He whispered. I didn't answer right away. That was my habit when fear hit me, to go quiet and calculate. My mind ran through every fragile piece of our life that could be ripped away. Our lease, our savings, my job, his job, the roof over our heads. I turned the phone toward him. He read it once, then again, then his breathing turned uneven. This can't be real, he said, but his voice didn't sound sure. From the hallway, Selah's door creaked. A shadow moved under the crack of her door. She was awake, listening. I slipped out of bed and pulled on a hoodie. My hands were trembling, but my voice needed to stay steady. I leaned close to Knox and whispered, don't confront her. Not tonight. He looked at me like that was impossible. Lorelai, if she did this, I cut in gentle but firm, then we handle it the right way. Quiet, clean. No room for her to twist it. He swallowed, jaw tight. He nodded once like he hated it but trusted me. I stepped into the kitchen and locked my phone screen, forcing my face into calm. Selah came out a minute later, already dressed, hair brushed, eyes glossy like she had been crying. She looked at me the way a person looks at a judge, trying to decide if charm or anger will work better. I can't sleep, she said softly. My chest hurts. My body tensed. Part of me wanted to rush to her because I am not cruel and fear is contagious, but I also knew her patterns. Pain appeared when she needed control. I kept my voice neutral. Do you want me to call urgent care? Selah blinked like she hadn't expected that. No. Do you want Knox to take you in the morning? No, she repeated sharper. Then she sighed and put a hand over her heart dramatically. I just feel abandoned. I nodded slowly. Okay. The word made her relax again. She thought it meant I was folding back into the old role. She took a step closer. A mother doesn't deserve this. I didn't argue. I didn't defend. I didn't attack. I just walked to the sink, filled a glass of water, and placed it on the counter within her reach. The way you might care for someone without giving them the steering wheel. Selah's eyes followed me. You know, she murmured. Sometimes the world punishes women who refuse their purpose. My stomach turned, but I kept my face calm. Behind me, Knox appeared in the doorway, shoulders tense, eyes red from lack of sleep. Selah turned toward him instantly, face softening into a wounded expression. Baby, she said, voice trembling. I think I should leave. I'm ruining your marriage. Knox took a breath, and I watched the old reflex rise in him. His shoulders shifted like he was about to apologize. I touched his arm lightly, just a reminder, just a tether. He looked at me. Then he looked at her. His voice came out low and controlled. We'll talk in the morning. Selah's eyes narrowed. Why wait? Because we're not doing this in the middle of the night, he said. Selah's lips pressed together. She turned back to me, searching for a crack in my calm. When she didn't find it, she retreated to her room again. As soon as her door closed, Knox exhaled hard. Lorelai, I can't do another day of this. I know, I whispered. But we need facts first. No, ma'am, she said. You're in good standing. Rent is paid. There is no eviction. My shoulders loosened a fraction, but my anger sharpened. So it was a threat, a weapon, a fake paper meant to scare us into obedience. I asked the woman still calmly, can you email me a statement showing our account is current? She agreed. Second, I called my workplace and asked the front desk to forward me the voicemail logs again, and I asked for the caller ID details. I kept my tone light, like it was routine, like I wasn't shaking inside. I wanted the paper trail neat. Third, I called the number that had texted me the photo. I didn't accuse. I didn't demand. I just said, hi, this is Lorelai. I received a picture from this number. Can you tell me who you are? A pause. Then a woman's voice, hesitant. It's Greer, Knox's aunt. I didn't want to scare you. My chest tightened. Why do you have that? Greer sighed. Selah sent it to me. She was crying. She said she had to do something before you turned him against her forever. My stomach dropped again, but this time it came with a strange relief because the truth was clearer. Selah wasn't just manipulative. She was escalating on purpose. I spoke slowly. Did she say she made it? Greer hesitated. She said she found a template online. She said it would make you both realize she's serious. I closed my eyes, shame and fury colliding. A grown woman had forged an eviction notice to terrorize her own son and his wife. I opened my eyes and kept my voice steady. Greer, would you be willing to tell Knox that directly? Greer's voice softened. Yes, I'm sorry, honey. I knew it was wrong the second she sent it. I thanked her, because gratitude is not weakness, and hung up. When Knox came out of the bathroom, hair damp, eyes tired, I slid my phone across the table again. Not as a dramatic reveal, but as a quiet transfer of reality. I called the leasing office. I said, there's no eviction. He exhaled sharply. Thank God. And I talked to your aunt, I continued. She said your mom used a template. Knox's face changed. Something in him hardened, like a door finally closing. She forged it. I nodded once. Yes. He stood there for a moment, staring at the floor. Then he said, I'm done. The words were simple, but they carried years of grief and loyalty and fear. I felt tears sting my eyes. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because I knew how much it cost to choose a boundary when you were raised to call it betrayal. Selah came out of her room soon after, moving slowly like she expected us to be shaken and apologetic. She glanced between us and lifted her chin. I hope you both slept, she said. Knox didn't answer. He walked to the kitchen drawer, pulled out a pen, and placed it on the table. Then he set his phone beside it and opened his notes app, like he was preparing for a meeting. At sunrise, while Knox showered, I sat at the kitchen table and made 3 calls. First, I called our leasing office. My voice was polite, almost cheerful. I asked if there were any issues with our account. I asked if there had been any notices posted or mailed. The woman on the phone sounded confused. She checked. She checked again. Selah frowned. What is this? Knox's voice stayed calm. We're making a plan. Selah's eyes flashed finally. I spoke before Knox could, because I didn't want him to carry this alone. Selah, you're going to stay with Greer starting today. Selah froze. Excuse me? Knox nodded once. I already texted her. She's expecting you. Selah's face tightened, and for a second her fear showed through the anger. You can't send me away like a child. Knox's voice cracked slightly, but he didn't raise it. You tried to schedule an appointment under Lorelai's name. You called her job. You lied to your friends about her, and you made a fake eviction notice to scare us. Selah's eyes snapped to me. You told him that. I kept my voice even. You did it. Selah's breathing turned fast. I did it because I love him. Knox's hands trembled, but he kept them on the table. Love doesn't look like this. Selah's tears arrived again. Perfect timing. So I'm the villain. I'm the lonely old widow you both want gone. I watched her. I watched the way she tried to pull the room into her storm, and I didn't step into it. I stayed on the proof line. I reached into my bag and placed the email from the leasing office on the table. Printed. Then I placed the voicemail log details beside it. Then I placed a written statement from my workplace confirming the caller. ID information? Neat, quiet, clear. Selah stared at the stack like it was poison. Knox spoke softly. You don't get to do this anymore. Selah's voice turned sharp. If she would just give you a baby, none of this would have happened. I felt my face go hot, humiliation and rage buzzing under my skin, but I didn't explode. I inhaled. I spoke slowly. My body is not your project. Selah scoffed. You're selfish. I nodded once. Okay. The word made her blink. I continued, still calm. Here's what's going to happen. You will pack a bag. Knox will drive you to Greer's. We will change the locks. You will not contact my workplace again. You will not schedule anything under my name again. And you will not discuss children in this home again. Selah's mouth twisted. Or what? I looked at Knox, then back to Selah. Or we file a harassment report and pursue a protective order. Not because we want drama, because we want peace. Knox's voice steadied. Mom, I love you, but you're hurting us. And I won't let you hurt my wife. Selah's face cracked. Real tears, not performance, slipped down her cheeks. For the first time, she looked older. Not just in years, but in consequence. She whispered, he would have wanted this. Knox's eyes filled again, but his voice stayed firm. Don't use Dad. Selah wiped her tears angrily and turned away. Walking down the hall like her pride was the only thing holding her upright. While she packed, Knox and I sat on the couch in silence. He reached for my hand and held it tightly, like he was anchoring himself in the present. I'm sorry, he whispered. I squeezed his fingers. I don't want you to choose between us, I said. I just need you to choose what's right. He nodded, voice thick. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing our life. When Selah came out with her bag, she didn't look at me. She looked only at Knox, eyes bright with anger and grief. As they walked to the door, I felt my chest tighten with something unexpected. Not pity, not guilt. A quiet sadness for the version of family I had tried so hard to create. The one where love and boundaries could coexist without war. Selah paused at the doorway and finally looked at me. Hatred and fear tangled together. He'll resent you, she said. One day he'll see what you did. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I just said okay. Selah blinked again, thrown off by my calm. Then she left. When the door closed, Knox leaned his forehead against it for a long moment, breathing like he had been holding his lungs tight for years. Then he straightened, turned to me and said, change the locks today. I already called, I replied. He let out a small broken laugh that turned into a sob. I held him, and for the first time in months, the apartment felt like it belonged to us. The next week was quiet in a way that felt unnatural at first. I flinched when my phone buzzed. I checked the hallway when I heard a creak. My body had learned to live in tension, and it didn't know how to drop it yet. Greer texted Knox updates. Selah was angry. Selah was sulking. Selah was trying to recruit cousins. Selah was saying she was sick again. Knox didn't bite. He sent one message, short and calm, and then stopped. We will talk when you can respect my wife, he wrote. Until then, this is the boundary. A month later, Selah requested to meet at a coffee shop, neutral ground. Knox asked if I wanted to come. I did. Selah arrived wearing her best coat, hair done, makeup perfect. She sat stiffly across from us and stared into her cup like the foam might give her answers. She tried to start with tears. It didn't work. Knox stayed calm. She tried guilt. It didn't work. Knox stayed calm. Finally, she tried something else. She looked at me and said quietly, I don't know how to be second. My chest tightened. For a moment, I saw the real wound underneath her control. Losing her husband, raising a child alone, holding on too hard because letting go felt like dying. I didn't excuse what she did, but I understood the fear. I spoke softly. You don't have to be second. You just can't be in charge of my body or our marriage. Selah's eyes filled. She nodded once, small and stiff. Knox said, if you want to be in our life, you get help, therapy, support, something, because we're not doing this cycle anymore. Selah's lips trembled. And if I don't? Knox's voice stayed steady. Then you stay at Greer's and we keep our distance. Selah stared at him, like she was seeing her son as an adult for the first time. Her voice was barely audible. You really mean it? Knox nodded. I do. Selah looked down. Then she said the last thing I expected. Okay. It wasn't a full apology. It wasn't repentance. But it was the first time she responded without a weapon hidden behind her words. Later that night, Knox and I stood in our kitchen, and the lemon magnet was still there, still holding up a piece of paper that suddenly felt harmless. Knox wrapped his arms around me from behind and rested his chin on my shoulder. I thought choosing you meant losing her, he whispered. But maybe choosing you is the only way to ever have her in my life in a healthy way. I leaned back into him, eyes stinging. That's what I wanted, I said. Not a win, a life. Weeks turned into months. Selah started therapy according to Greer. She still slipped sometimes. She still hinted. But when she did, Knox shut it down calmly every time, like practice. And one evening, as I threw away an old flyer from the mailbox, I realized something simple and huge. No one had tried to circle my name in ink for a long time. For a couple minutes, let me step out of the story and say this. People like that don't always look evil. Sometimes they look like love. Sometimes they look like sacrifice. And that's why it's so confusing. You start believing you owe them your peace. You start believing boundaries are cruelty. They're not. Boundaries are the only way real love survives. And if you grew up managing someone else's emotions, you'll feel guilty the first time you stop. That guilt is not a sign you're wrong. It's a sign you're finally free. I learned that staying calm isn't weakness. It's power. You don't have to scream to protect yourself. You just have to stop negotiating your dignity. And if someone keeps pushing, you don't push back louder. You move the line. Quietly, permanently. That's how you get your life back. In our apartment, the loudest sound now was the soft click of a lock that worked,